I placed the last piece of jewelry into the velvet box, my fingertips lingering for a second on the diamond necklace. This necklace was a gift from Sebastian Croft for our wedding anniversary last year. He said the blue gem matched the color of my eyes. Thinking back now, that was probably the last time he ever truly looked into my eyes. My phone vibrated, the name Mr. Evans flashing on the screen. I answered, a smile already on my face before he could speak. What urgent meeting does Mr. Croft have tonight? There was a moment of silence on the other end. Ma'am, Mr. Croft asked me to inform you that he likely won't make it to the anniversary gala tonight. Miss Lowell just finished her checkup, and her condition is a bit unstable. Understood. I hung up, my fingertips ice cold. This was the 6th time in 3 months. Sophia Lowell, Sebastian's idealized first love, had been a ticking time bomb in our marriage ever since she returned to the country with a relapse of her depression. The dressing mirror reflected a face that was meticulously made up but utterly lifeless. I picked up a cotton pad to remove my makeup, but my hand froze before it reached my eyes. No, I was still going. Why should I hide away like some shameful, abandoned wife? The gala was held in a top-floor ballroom downtown. Crystal chandeliers bathed the space in a light as bright as day. I moved through the guests with a glass of champagne, a perfect smile fixed on my lips. Eleanor, all by yourself. Where's Sebastian? A fellow corporate wife, Mrs. Davis, sidled up with feigned concern, the gossip gleaming in her eyes impossible to hide. He had a last-minute issue at the company. I took a delicate sip of champagne, the bubbles popping on my tongue with a bittersweet tang. Oh my, these young girls nowadays are really something else. I heard that Sophia Lowell is back. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. My cousin works at Mercy General Hospital, she said. Mr. Croft has been there these past few months. Mrs. Davis, I interrupted with a smile. Your earrings are stunning today. Are they from the new Cartier collection? Changing the subject was the greatest skill I had honed over the past half year. Every fake smile felt like a knife slicing at the corners of my mouth, but I couldn't cry, couldn't make a scene, couldn't give these people the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. After the gala, Mr. Evans asked if I wanted to go straight home. I looked out at the neon-drenched streets and said suddenly, let's go to Mercy General. Are you not feeling well, ma'am? I paused, then resumed my usual tone. Yes, a little. The car stopped at the third red light, and raindrops began to tap against the window. Through the hazy curtain of rain and the bright lights of the hospital entrance, I saw them. Sebastian held a black umbrella, carefully shielding Sophia as they walked out of the hospital. She was wearing a white dress, leaning against his arm as if she might collapse at any moment. The way he looked down and spoke to her was with a gentleness I hadn't seen in a very long time. Sophia said something, and Sebastian actually laughed, a relaxed, genuine laugh. The light turned green. The driver was about to step on the gas when I said suddenly, Mr. Evans, please pull over. The rain fell harder, and the windows were quickly covered in a sheet of water. Through the blur, I watched them walk towards the parking lot. Sebastian tilted almost the entire umbrella over Sophia, oblivious to his own shoulder getting soaked. This was the man who had once berated me for not bringing an umbrella in the rain, saying I didn't know how to take care of myself. Now, he was getting wet for another woman. I closed my eyes and heard something shatter inside my chest. It wasn't a sudden shatter, but the quiet sound of the last thread of hope finally turning to dust. Back home, I went straight to the walk-in closet and dragged out a suitcase from the bottom that I had never used. Packing was simpler than I'd imagined. I only took the clothes I'd bought before marriage, my design sketches, and essential documents, the expensive jewelry, the limited edition handbag she could leave them for his precious first love. As I placed the signed divorce agreement on the living room coffee table, the antique clock on the wall struck 12. The sound of a key turning in the lock was piercingly loud in the midnight silence. Sebastian froze when he walked in and saw me standing next to the suitcase. His gaze quickly fell on the document on the table. What is this? He asked, picking it up, his brow furrowed. It's exactly what it looks like. I stared at him calmly. This man I had loved for 6 years now seemed like a complete stranger. Stop messing around, Eleanor. He put the document down, his voice laced with fatigue and impatience. Sophia's condition was really bad today. The doctor said she's suicidal. I can't. Why can't you? I cut him off. Of course, you can. You can stay by her bedside all night. You can cancel all our plans. You can turn our marriage into a 3-person circus. I took a deep breath, but I'm not playing along anymore. Are you jealous? He actually smiled, reaching out to touch my face. Sophia and I are in the past. Right now, it's just. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. Seeing him like this, I felt a wave of helplessness. Sebastian, I'm 29, not 19. Jealousy is a teenage emotion that no longer suits me. I pulled the suitcase closer. I've done a lot of thinking these past 6 months. About us, about you and Sophia, about what's left of this marriage. The smile vanished from his face, his voice turning cold. And I'm setting you free. I looked him straight in the eye. Just because she's sick. Eleanor Vance, when did you become so cold-hearted? His voice rose sharply. The words were a knife, twisting into the softest part of my heart. But strangely, I didn't feel pain. Only a numb sense of release. No, Sebastian, it's because I've finally figured it out, I said softly. Her depression isn't her fault, but she is your choice. And every time you choose her, you are choosing to abandon me. He opened his mouth to argue, but I was already dragging my suitcase to the door. In the second before I closed it, I heard him call my name, but I didn't turn back. The moment the elevator doors shut, I leaned against the cold metal wall and finally allowed the tears to fall, not for Sebastian, but for the Eleanor who had once given up her career, her identity, and even her dignity for him. As the morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, I sat on the small balcony of an apartment owned by Sebastian, scrolling through my phone. Overnight, my social media had exploded. The 99 notifications almost made my phone crash. I clicked on the top post that tagged me. It was from a jewelry brand director, a group photo from a charity gala with the caption, Croft Group CEO Sebastian Croft's marriage rumored to be on the rocks. In the photo, Sebastian was in a sharp suit, with Sophia in a red dress leaning against him. The sight of them toasting and smiling stung my eyes. I checked the timestamp, 2:15 a.m., less than 3 hours after I had left the villa. So his claim that Sophia's condition was unstable was just another excuse to brush me off. It certainly didn't stop him from escorting her to a gala. My phone vibrated. My best friend Zoe's name popped up. Ellie, did you see what that bitch posted? How dare she? I saw it. My voice was surprisingly calm as I swiped and saved the photo. Good. I was worried I didn't have enough evidence. She's just delivering it to my doorstep. Are you serious? You're really getting a divorce? Zoe gasped on the other end. But that's Sebastian Croft, the man every woman wants to marry, the head of the Croft Group. So, I cut her off, walking to the kitchen to pour myself a glass of ice water. Because of that, I should just be grateful to be a decoration. Watching him spend all his time with another woman. There was a pause on the other end. I'm just worried about you. You know what people in our circle will say. I looked out at the bustling city, the morning sun casting a golden glow on the skyscrapers. Let them talk. I hung up and tossed the phone onto the sofa. The doorbell rang at 10 o'clock sharp. Through the peephole, I saw Sebastian's assistant, Mr. Evans, standing outside. He was holding a familiar blue velvet box, the latest high jewelry collection from Cartier, which had just been featured in a magazine last week. Ma'am, Mr. Croft asked me to give this to you. Mr. Evans looked awkward. He said, he bought it based on what he thought you would like. I took the box and opened it. The diamonds glittered coldly in the sunlight. A blue sapphire of at least 10 carats was surrounded by flawless smaller diamonds. Its price equivalent to a white-collar worker's 10-year salary. How ironic. He couldn't spare an hour for our 5th anniversary, but the day after our separation, he had time to pick out jewelry for me, and he had chosen the paved diamond style I hated most. I gave a self-deprecating laugh. One moment. I went back inside, retrieved a folder from a drawer, and handed it back to Mr. Evans along with the jewelry box. Give this to your boss. Tell him I don't need his charity. Mr. Evans stood there, flustered, but Mr. Croft said, also, I pointed to the dozen or so cardboard boxes stacked by the door. Those are Mr. Croft's personal belongings. Please take them with you. If he needs anything else, he can contact my lawyer. Those boxes were filled with things Sebastian had used to create the facade of a loving couple for the media. Whenever there was a hint of scandal about him, he would pull a stunt like this. I closed the door, leaned against it, and slid to the floor. My heart was pounding, my palms sweaty. So this is what it felt like to refuse Sebastian, both terrifying and exhilarating. Like the moment I first jumped out of a plane. My phone lit up. Sebastian's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it and watched it light up and go dark 3 times, before finally staying quiet. A text message followed. Eleanor, stop this. We need to talk. I turned off my phone completely and used my backup to call the moving company I'd scheduled. I had too much to do today to play house with Mr. Croft. At 3 in the afternoon, rain streaked down the window panes, blurring the city lights into abstract shapes. I knelt on the newly wiped wooden floor, carefully placing the last book onto the shelf. I had bought this duplex apartment in the east side of the city when I was 25, right after winning the Young Designer Gold Award. I had used all the prize money for the down payment. After getting married, Sebastian had complained it was too small, so it had remained empty. I never thought I would be back here. I stood before the full-length mirror, adjusting the shoulders of my blazer. The sharp jacket suit was something I'd bought 2 years ago and never had a chance to wear. Sebastian liked me in dresses, said they made me look softer. I looked at the woman in the mirror, the sharp haircut, the defined eyebrows, the firm set of her lips, a far cry from the gentle image of Mrs. Croft, angular, with an attitude that was the real me. The meek Mrs. Croft was just a role I played for him. Now, I was done acting. The law firm Zoe recommended was in the most expensive building on the financial street. The lawyer who received me, Ms. Lee, was a renowned divorce specialist, rumored to have secured a 9-figure settlement for a tech mobile's ex-wife, Ms. Vance. Based on the information you've provided, your chances of winning are very high. Ms. Lee pushed up her gold-rimmed glasses. Mr. Croft's intimate photos with Miss Lowell can be used as evidence of emotional infidelity, coupled with long-term neglect. No, I don't want to play the victim. I cut her off. Let's proceed with a standard divorce. I only want what is rightfully mine. Ms. Lee looked slightly surprised, but according to marital law, you are entitled to much more in compensation. I don't need his compensation, I said calmly. I just want my freedom back, and what I'm entitled to. As I left the law firm, the setting sun painted the entire street in shades of orange. I walked past the Croft Group's headquarters and instinctively looked up at the familiar window on the top floor. How many nights had I waited alone in that office for Sebastian to finish work? Eleanor Vance. A soft female voice came from behind me. I turned to see Sophia Lowell standing a few feet away, her beige trench coat making her skin look like porcelain. She was holding a visitor's pass from the Croft Group, clearly having just left the building. I didn't expect to see you here. What a coincidence. She tilted her head slightly, a harmless smile on her face. I was just dropping off some documents for Seb. I heard you're getting a divorce. The familiar Seb was like a needle to my eardrum. I forced a smile. Miss Lowell, you're by his side day and night. How could you not know? Actually, she took a step closer, the heavy scent of her perfume washing over me. You don't have to be like this. Seb said you're just throwing a tantrum and you'll be fine in a few days. After all, she glanced meaningfully at my simple attire and said in a sing-song voice, without the Croft family, how will you maintain your current standard of living? I looked into her carefully made-up eyes and suddenly smiled. Miss Lowell, you know what? Only people without ability worry about things like that. I took a step forward, closing the distance between us. Besides, I married Sebastian for love, not his money. Now that I don't love him anymore, I naturally don't need a single cent from him. Sophia's smile froze. I walked past her towards the other side of the street, hearing her raise her voice behind me. You think getting a divorce is that simple? The Croft family won't let you go so easily. I didn't turn back, just waved my hand dismissively, as if brushing away a speck of dust. That night, Zoe burst into my apartment, holding up her phone. Look, see what that green tea bitch posted. I took the phone. On the screen was a selfie of Sophia, the background clearly a high-end restaurant's private room. She was making a peace sign at the camera, with the caption, "Thanks for the consolation dinner." In the corner of the photo, a man's hand and half of a Patek Philippe watch were visible, the birthday gift I had given Sebastian last year. That woman has no shame. If it weren't April Fool's Day, I'd really let her have it. Zoe paced back and forth in the living room. It's only the first day since your separation and she's already, "We're not divorced yet," I said calmly, swiping the photo away. A hint of mockery in my eyes. Just separated. What's the difference? Sebastian is clearly. Zoe suddenly fell silent, looking at me cautiously. Eleanor, are you okay? I looked out at the glittering city lights and suddenly realized I felt as if I had finally woken up from a long nightmare. Of course, there's a difference, I said, my voice hoarse. As long as we're not divorced, I have ways to make his life a living hell. And I'm doing great right now, I said softly. Really? The doorbell rang again. Zoe went to open it, and I heard her gasp, Mrs. Croft. I turned to see my mother-in-law, Margaret Croft, standing at the door, dressed in designer clothes, her makeup as flawless as if she were attending a gala. Margaret was Sebastian's mother. She had initially disapproved of our marriage, but for some reason, after a talk with Sebastian, she had stopped objecting. But she had never given me a kind look. Every time we went to the Croft family home for dinner, she would find a way to embarrass me in front of everyone. Over time, I learned to ignore her. The moment she showed any displeasure, I would find an excuse to leave. I watched her sharp gaze sweep over the modest apartment before finally landing on me. Eleanor, we need to talk. She walked in and sat on the sofa as if this were still her domain. Zoe tactfully excused herself. I poured Margaret a cup of tea and sat down opposite her. I heard about you and Sebastian from him, she said, getting straight to the point. It's understandable for young people to have arguments, but a divorce is going too far. I ran my finger along the rim of the teacup, looking directly into her eyes. Aunt Margaret, this isn't an impulsive decision. Because of Sophia Lowell, she sneered. Men will be men, but the position of Mrs. Croft will always be yours. Why make a fuss over such a small thing? That's right. Margaret had always known about Sophia, perhaps because her own husband had his affairs. She always tried to persuade me to look the other way, just like tonight. Mrs. Croft, I am not you. I cut her off. For 6 years, I gave up my career. I tolerated Sebastian putting his work first, and for the past 6 months, I even accepted him putting Sophia first. But now, I've had enough. Margaret's expression turned cold. Eleanor, you need to think carefully. Without the Croft family, you are nothing. That suits me just fine. I put down my teacup, my eyes cold as I met her gaze. I don't think much of your family anyway. I'm better off without you. Margaret's face was a mask of fury as she left. I closed the door and realized my hands were trembling slightly. But strangely, all those years of her cold indifference finally found a place to rest in that moment. My phone lit up. It was a text from an unknown number. A photo of Sebastian and Sophia in a private room at a Japanese restaurant. She was smiling as she fed him sushi. The caption was just one sentence. Eleanor, Sebastian has always loved me. You will never have his love. I stared at the photo for a long time, then gently pressed delete. The moonlight streamed in, drawing a clear silver line across the floor, like a boundary separating my past from my future. The next day, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. Zoe's name flashed on the screen. My dearest Ellie, are you ready? The designer's mixer is at 7 tonight. Don't forget. I glanced at the wall clock. It was already 4:30 p.m. I remember. I'm just about to get changed. My eyes scanned the sparse collection of clothes in my closet, most of them in the soft, feminine style Sebastian preferred, completely out of sync with who I was now. Great. Owen Sterling will be there too. He's the founder of eDesign Studio. If you could connect with him. Zoe's voice rose with excitement. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I'm just going to take a look. I'm not planning on. Don't you dare tell me you're not planning a comeback. Zoe interrupted. Hasn't your talent been buried for 5 years already? Now is the perfect time. All right. See you tonight. I hastily hung up and pulled a black pantsuit from the back of the closet. I had worn it for my graduation presentation. The fabric was a bit stiff from being stored for so long, but the cut was still sharp. The taxi crawled through the evening rush hour traffic. The rain had stopped, but the air was still damp, mixed with the smell of greasy food from the street stalls. The smell reminded me of my college days, when my classmates and I would go out for late-night street food after pulling all-nighters to finish our projects. The Eleanor back then had a spark in her eyes, talking about changing the city's skyline, not worrying about whether her husband would be home for dinner. That'll be 68. The driver's voice pulled me back to reality. The mixer was held in a renovated old factory, the exposed brick walls and steel roof creating a raw, industrial vibe. I had just signed in when Zoe grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. Hurry up. Owen Sterling is looking at the new talent exhibition. In the center of the hall, a tall man was bent over, examining a young designer's portfolio. He was wearing a simple white shirt, the sleeves casually rolled up to his elbows, revealing well-defined forearms. When Zoe introduced me, he straightened up, his sharp gaze peering from behind his glasses. Eleanor Vance, the designer of the urban respiration concept from 5 years ago. I was surprised he remembered that student project. My fingers unconsciously tightened around the folder I had brought with me. I'm surprised you remember. The idea of combining traditional courtyards with modern high-rises was stunning. Owen took my folder and flipped through it. Why haven't I seen any new work from you in the past 5 years? Zoe pinched my waist. I took a deep breath and said nonchalantly, I took some time off after getting married. A pity. Owen's finger stopped on a sketch I had quickly drawn last night. Is this your latest idea? I had drawn it at 3 in the morning during a bout of insomnia. Bold concept of transforming a derelict industrial area into a vertical garden. I nodded. Yes, but it's just a preliminary idea. Do you have a full proposal? Owen closed the folder and looked directly into my eyes. Our studio is currently bidding for the West Side Old Textile Mill renovation project. Your style is a perfect fit for the theme. My throat felt tight. I hadn't worked formally in 5 years. The industry had changed completely. I might need some time to familiarize myself with the latest. Monday, 10 a.m. My office. Bring the full proposal. Owen handed me a business card. Whatever personal reasons you had for pausing your career, talent doesn't lie. Zoe was chattering excitedly in my ear, but I couldn't hear a thing, only the rapid beating of my own heart. For 6 years. Finally, someone saw not Mrs. Croft, but Eleanor Vance, the designer. On the way home, I detoured to a 24-hour stationery store and bought a large stack of drawing paper and the latest version of architectural design software. A familiar black Maybach was parked in front of my apartment building. My heart skipped a beat. Sebastian was leaning against the car, his suit jacket draped over his arm, his tie loosened. He looked like he had rushed over right after work. Eleanor. He straightened up, his eyes bloodshot. You're back. The night wind ruffled his hair. The man who had once captivated me now looked tired and vulnerable, but the heart that had once beaten wildly for him was now as still as a stagnant pond. Please leave, Mr. Croft. I walked around him towards the elevator. There's nothing for us to talk about. He grabbed my wrist. Just 10 minutes. The moment our skin touched, I instinctively pulled my hand away. The action stunned us both. There was a time when I had longed for him to take my hand, but now, there was only a primal urge to recoil. You know, I said, pressing the elevator button, my voice so calm it surprised even me. For 6 years, I waited for you to come home for dinner every day. The food would get cold, I'd reheat it, and then it would get cold again, until I finally threw it in the trash. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside, holding the door open button. Now I understand. It wasn't that you were too busy. It was just that I wasn't important enough. Sebastian's brow furrowed. I can explain about Sophia. No need. I released the button. My lawyer has already sent you the divorce papers. Please sign them and let me know. As the elevator doors closed, I saw him raise his hand as if to stop them, but in the end, he just let it fall. Back in my apartment, I leaned against the door. I thought I would cry, but my eyes were too dry for tears. The next morning, I was woken up by a barrage of notification sounds. Zoe had sent over a dozen links. The last one reading, look at the trending topics. That bitch is at it again. I clicked on the top entertainment news story. New development in high society divorce. Croft Group CEO's late-night meeting with ex-wife. Rumored reconciliation. The accompanying photo was of Sebastian grabbing my wrist in front of my apartment building last night. The angle cleverly made him look deeply emotional, while my profile looked as if I were choking back sobs. The article was full of insinuations that I was playing hard to get, even quoting so-called insiders who claimed I was using a strategic retreat to force a marriage. My phone slipped from my hand and landed on the carpet with a soft thud. I went into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. The woman in the mirror had red-rimmed eyes, but her gaze was surprisingly calm. Back in the living room, I picked up my phone, logged into my long-dormant personal social media account, and posted a brief statement. Personal statement from Eleanor Vance. Divorce proceedings with Mr. Sebastian Croft are underway. We are currently separated. I urge the media to respect the facts and refrain from speculation. I will not be responding to any further questions about my personal life. After posting, I turned off all social media notifications, tossed my phone onto the sofa, and spread out the drawing paper I had bought last night. As the pencil drew the first line on the paper, a long-forgotten sense of peace washed over me. Turns out, all I needed to find myself again was a pencil and a piece of paper. 3 days later, while I was buried in a sea of design drawings, the doorbell rang again. The security monitor showed a delivery person. I opened the door, only to find a massive bouquet of red roses blocking the entire doorway. Miss Vance, please sign here. I opened the attached card. There was only one word, written in a flamboyant scrawl, Croft. In the center of the bouquet was a velvet jewelry box. Inside was a diamond bracelet, from the same collection as the one I had returned on the night of our separation. I closed the box and handed it back to the delivery person along with the bouquet. Please return this. Just say the recipient refused delivery. The delivery person looked troubled. But, the client paid for expedited shipping. That's his problem, not mine. I closed the door. That afternoon, at the supermarket, I saw the latest issue of Business Weekly in the magazine section. The cover was a photo of Sebastian and Sophia at a charity event. The headline read, New Direction for Croft Group. Tech Park Project Launched. CEO appears with new companion. I picked up the magazine and flipped to the article. It detailed how Sebastian had personally introduced Sophia as an important business partner. The photo showed her with her arm linked through his, looking every bit the part of the lady of the house. The small TV at the checkout counter was playing an entertainment news segment. The anchor was reading in a dramatic tone. Recently, a netizen reported spotting Croft Group CEO Sebastian Croft vacationing with a female companion in the Maldives, sparking rumors of a new romance. The screen switched to a blurry long shot, showing two figures strolling on a beach. I put down my shopping basket and walked out of the supermarket. The sun outside was blinding. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Zoe. Did you see the news? That green tea bitch actually went to the Maldives with Sebastian. You're not even officially divorced and she's already. I cut her off. I'm working on a design proposal. I have a presentation at Owen Sterling's studio next week. There was a pause on the other end. Are you serious? I am. I looked up at the blue sky. And I feel better than I ever have. Back home, I opened my computer and saved a screenshot of the Business Weekly article to a new folder. Then I went to the Croft Group's official website and started researching their new tech park project. As a former top architecture student, I could see at a glance that their main design had serious flaws in its pedestrian flow. My pencil moved quickly across the paper, sketching out a new solution. Working late into the night, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. The stars in the Maldives are beautiful. Thank you for letting go. I looked at the message and quickly typed a reply. So you do know you only got him because I didn't want him anymore. I put down my pencil and switched my phone to airplane mode. The city lights outside my window were bright. Countless windows holding countless lives. In my window, I no longer needed Sebastian or anyone else to turn on the lights for me. The glass walls of the studio filtered the early summer sun into a cool hue, casting it onto the 3D model in the center of the conference table. I adjusted the Bluetooth earpiece and aimed the laser pointer at the vertical garden on the model's third level. In this area, we've implemented a vertical greening system, which not only lowers the building's internal temperature but also provides a recreational space for office workers. Across the round table, the review committee for the West Side renovation project exchanged glances. The chairman, Mr. Lee, took off his glasses and wiped them. Ms. Vance, this proposal is indeed very creative, but the construction difficulty and cost. On that point, I said, pulling up a set of data on my tablet. We've had preliminary discussions with 3 contractors. Using prefabricated components can shorten the construction period, and the actual cost is 12 lower than traditional methods. The numbers on the screen were clear and concise, the result of 2 weeks of late nights comparing quotes from dozens of suppliers. The door at the corner of the room opened quietly, and Owen Sterling walked in with a cup of coffee, giving me an almost imperceptible nod. Since I had officially joined the studio last week, this project had become my trial by fire. 6 years as a housewife had almost made me forget how much I enjoyed this kind of professional challenge. If there are no other questions, I said, closing my folder, we can submit the detailed construction drawings next week. Mr. Lee was the first to stand and extend his hand. We look forward to working with you. Ms. Vance, to be honest, we had originally planned to partner with the Croft Group, but their proposal was, he smiled meaningfully, lacking in originality. My handshake faltered for half a second. The Croft Group was also bidding for this project. Sebastian had never mentioned it, but that was none of my concern now. As I left the conference room, my phone vibrated in my pocket. Zoe's name flashed on the screen. Huge gossip. Sebastian just cancelled his trip to the Maldives with Sophia. I heard he threw a massive tantrum at the office. I deleted the message and silenced my phone. The elevator doors reflected my image. A sharp white pantsuit, my hair cut to my collarbones, the gentle smile replaced by a cool, professional expression. This was how I was supposed to be. The girl at the front desk of the studio called out to me. Eleanor, you have a delivery. She handed me an exquisite gift box with the logo of a famous jewelry brand. I knew what was inside without even opening a diamond bracelet I had refused for the 3rd time. As expected, there was a card inside. Congratulations on the new job, Croft. I placed the box back on the counter and smiled. Please have this returned, just like before. But, the receptionist hesitated. The delivery person said that if you refuse it again, Mr. Croft will deliver it in person. Then let him, I said, picking up a set of blueprints from my desk. We'll see when he gets here. At 6 in the evening, I walked out of the office building with a stack of documents, the setting sun painting the entire financial district in shades of orange. A familiar black car pulled up in front of me, the window rolled down, revealing Sebastian's chiseled profile. Get in. His imperious tone was just as I remembered. I walked around the car and continued on my way. The sound of screeching tires followed me. He got out of the car and blocked my path. Get in. His voice was laced with an anxiety I had never heard before. Just 5 minutes. People were already stopping to stare, some even raising their phones. I sighed and got into the car, deliberately keeping my distance. Go on. Sebastian's fingers tapped on the steering wheel. You're bidding for the West.I project. And what if I am? I looked out the window, avoiding his gaze. Why didn't you tell me? If I had known you were also involved. Tell you what. I turned my head. In what capacity are you questioning me? His jaw tightened. That's not what I mean. It's just that this project is very important to the Croft Group. We could collaborate. Collaborate. I couldn't help but laugh. Sebastian, collaborating with you would be dirty. I opened the car door. That's 5 minutes. He grabbed my wrist. This has nothing to do with Sophia. She just. You don't need to tell me. I don't want to know. I shook his hand off. His phone suddenly rang. The name Sophia Lowell flashed brightly on the screen. I took the opportunity to get out of the car and walked towards the subway station without looking back. The sound of a blaring horn followed me, but I didn't turn around. The building materials market was bustling with people on the weekend. I was comparing samples of 2 different eco-friendly stones when a faintly surprised female voice came from behind me. Well, if it isn't Miss Vance. Sophia Lowell, in a pricey custom-made dress and stilettos, looked completely out of place among the piles of building materials. She had a young assistant with her. What a coincidence, she said, her red lips curved into a smirk. Are you here shopping too? All by yourself must be so tough. Why didn't you have Seb come with you? I put down the stone samples, my gaze lingering on her for a moment before a smile touched my lips. Miss Lowell, are you also interested in building materials? I have to be, she said, flicking her long hair back. I'm helping Seb with the tech park project. One has to know the basics. Although, she glanced meaningfully at the sample book in my hand. It's best to leave the professional stuff to the professionals. You're right. I smiled and handed her a business card. It's just a shame they know you, but you don't know them. I hear the Croft Group is also very interested. A pity. I shrugged. The review committee seems to prefer our proposal. Sophia's smile froze. She knew how important this project was to Sebastian, and she knew what it meant for the Croft Group to lose the bid. A single victory doesn't mean anything, she said, quickly composing herself. Seb said these government projects are all about connections. Is that so? I cut her off. Why don't you go back and ask him why his longtime partner, Mr. Zhang, is no longer working with him? I took a step closer. And while you're at it, tell him that Chairman Li is very impressed with my innovations in the vertical greening system and plans to promote it throughout the industry. Sophia's pupils contracted slightly. She would never understand that all those years I had spent accompanying Sebastian to every party and every gala, I had been quietly building my own network. The high society socializing she sneered at was now my secret weapon for re-entering the professional world. Eleanor Vance, she suddenly hissed. You think winning a few projects proves anything? Seb is just not used to your tantrums. Once he gets tired of this little game of chase, he'll come back to you. I laughed softly. Sophia, you know what? I spent 6 years waiting for a man who didn't love me to come back. And you? I looked her up and down. You're waiting for a man who was never truly yours. Which one of us is more pathetic? Her face went white, her perfectly manicured nails digging deep into her palms. You, by the way, I said, pulling a document from my bag. Here are a few issues with the Croft Group's tech park design proposal. Professional advice. You can use it to get Sebastian's attention. I shoved the document into her trembling hands. After all, trash belongs in the trash can, not polluting other people. As I turned to leave, I heard her throw the document to the ground, walking out of the building materials market. The sun beat down relentlessly. I took a deep breath and called Owen Sterling. About the tech park project. I have a new idea. Monday morning at the studio was more lively than usual. As I walked into the office, my colleague, Lynn, rushed over. Eleanor, have you seen the Designers Association website today? The screen displayed an announcement. The Croft Group's tech park project was suspended, and the design team was being reorganized. I clicked for details and saw that the comments section had exploded. Industry insiders were speculating on the reasons. Someone anonymously revealed that the lead designer had falsified her credentials. Owen Sterling leaned against my desk with a cup of coffee, raising an eyebrow at me. I heard Sebastian held an emergency meeting last night and replaced the entire design team. He gave me a meaningful look. You don't seem surprised at all. I took a sip of my coffee. Professional matters should be handled by professionals, shouldn't they? During my lunch break, My phone vibrated. Sebastian's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. A text message followed. You were the one who found the problems with the tech park design. I didn't reply. 3 minutes later, another message. How did you know Sophia's graduation project was plagiarized? Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting striped shadows on the floor. I opened a drawer. Inside was a thick folder with Sophia Lowell written on the tab. The folder was filled with evidence of her plagiarism scandals from her time studying abroad, doubts about her depression diagnosis, and even proof of her recent kickbacks from Croft Group projects. My phone vibrated again. This time it was Zoe. Look at the trending topics. The Croft Group just released a statement cutting all ties with Sophia Lowell. Insiders are saying she's being investigated for academic fraud and commercial deception. I closed the drawer and silenced my phone. On my computer screen, the model for the west.I project was rendering. Sunlight filtered through the virtual glass, illuminating the indoor garden, every leaf rendered in vivid detail. As I was leaving work, a sudden downpour began. I stood in the lobby, waiting for the rain to let up. A black Maybach pulled up to the entrance. Sebastian got out, holding an umbrella, his suit shoulder already soaked. We need to talk. His voice was lower than usual. Just 10 minutes. I glanced at my watch. 5. The car smelled of leather and rain. Sebastian didn't speak immediately. He opened his tablet and pulled up a file. I received an anonymous email this morning. It contained evidence of Sophia's kickbacks from Croft projects over the past 6 months, as well as detailed proof of her falsified credentials. He turned to me. Was it you? Rain streamed down the window, distorting the neon lights outside into blurry streaks of color. Does it matter? It does. His fingers gripped the steering wheel. Because it's not just about the company, it's about, I thought I knew you. You never knew me, I said calmly, just like I never really knew you. He suddenly grabbed my hand. Eleanor, if I apologize, no need. I pulled my hand back. We were over a long time ago. Now, there's only one thing I need you to remember. I turned to look him in the eye. Stay away from my workplace. I pushed the door open, and the rain immediately hit my face, cold and sharp. Sebastian called my name from behind, but I was already running towards a taxi on the other side of the street. In the rearview mirror, his figure standing in the rain grew smaller and smaller, until it finally disappeared around the corner. Back at my apartment, I made a cup of hot tea and opened my computer to check my email. The Designers Association had sent an invitation, asking me to be a judge for next month's innovative design competition. I clicked reply and, without hesitation, accepted. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights shone brightly in the damp air. On the cover of an architecture magazine, a panoramic view of the completed West Side renovation project gleamed in the sun. I ran my fingers over the gold-stamped words Innovative Design of the Year, feeling the slight embossment. Outside my office door, my colleagues were popping champagne, their laughter seeping through the crack. Ms. Vance, there are reporters here who want to interview you. My assistant, Lynn, peeked in, her eyes sparkling. Designer's Home magazine wants to do a feature. They're calling you the most surprising comeback of the year. I placed the magazine in a drawer, where 3 other interview requests already lay. Tell them they'll be available next week. For the past 6 months, the caller ID at the studio had started to frequently display the names of clients who had once worked with the Croft Group. My phone vibrated on the desk. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations. I knew who it was without looking. I deleted the message, my finger hovering over the screen for a few seconds. Since our conversation in the rain last month, he had, as I requested, stayed away from my office, but the indirect contact had never stopped. Eleanor, Mr. Sterling wants to see you in the conference room in 10 minutes. Lynn peeked in again. I think it's a major client. In the conference room, Owen Sterling was talking to a middle-aged man in a suit. The moment I walked in, the man turned around. I recognized him immediately. Mr. Zhao, vice president of the Croft Group, Sebastian's right-hand man. Ms. Vance. Mr. Zhao stood up and extended his hand politely. A pleasure to finally meet you. I didn't miss the flicker of amusement in Owen's eyes. The dull roar of the coffee machine in the break room provided a fitting soundtrack for this awkward reunion. Mr. Zhao, to what do we owe the pleasure of your visit? Mr. Zhao took a gold-stamped folder from his briefcase. The Croft Group would like to invite your studio to co-design the East Lake Commercial District. He pushed up his glasses. Of course, Ms. Vance will be the lead designer. As for the fee, wasn't the East Lake project already awarded to the American firm GLA? I opened the folder. Inside were the project's core data and budget, confidential information that would never normally be shown to an outsider. It was, but Mr. Croft believes a local designer would have a better understanding of the market. Mr. Zhao's eyes scanned my face, as if searching for a reaction. He specifically requested that you lead the project. The sunlight outside the floor-to-ceiling windows suddenly became blinding. The East Lake project was Sebastian's most important strategic move this year, with an investment of $3 billion. The man who once wouldn't even let me attend the company's annual party was now handing me the lifeline of his business. "I'm flattered," I said, closing the folder, "but my schedule is currently full. I'm afraid." Owen suddenly cleared his throat. "Actually, we could adjust the schedule for the North City project." He gave me a warning look. The East Lake project is indeed a great challenge. After the meeting, Owen kept me in the conference room. "Do you know what it means to refuse this offer?" he asked, leaning against the window, his expression unreadable in the backlight. "That's a top-tier project." I gathered my materials from the table. "I don't need Sebastian Croft's handouts." "Handouts?" Owen chuckled. "Eleanor, you don't really think he's doing this out of guilt, do you?" He tossed a market analysis report at me. "For the past 3 months, for every project you've been involved in, the Croft Group's success rate in bidding has dropped by at least half." The aroma of coffee drifted in from the break room. I opened the report. It detailed a comparison of the studio's and the Croft Group's recent project outcomes. My eyes stopped on a note on the last page. Note: the original design team for the Croft Tech Park project has been completely replaced. The new proposal has adopted 60 of the suggested revisions. "Think it over," Owen said before leaving. "Not for Sebastian, for yourself." That evening, I stayed late at the office, revising drawings. Raindrops began to tap against the window, and the city lights blurred in the downpour. The East Lake project files were still open on my computer. I clicked on an email Sebastian had sent that morning. "Your professional opinion is important to this city." I closed my computer. The sound of the rain suddenly grew louder. There was a time when I would have done anything for a single word of recognition from him. Now, it just felt ironic. My phone lit up. A string of messages from Zoe. "The charity gala guest list is out. Sophia Lowell is on the organizing committee. She specifically invited you. It's definitely a trap. Want me to find an excuse for you to decline?" I replied, "Why would I decline?" Then I silenced my phone and continued to study the topographical maps for the East Lake project. The charity gala was held on the top floor of the Peninsula Hotel. I chose a simple black mermaid gown and styled my hair in a neat chignon. The moment the elevator doors opened, the light from the ballroom's crystal chandeliers poured out, almost blindingly bright. "Miss Vance," a woman in a champagne-colored gown greeted me. "I'm Lisa, the gala's PR director. We're so glad you could make it." She warmly took my arm. "Your design work has been making quite a splash in the industry lately." I smiled and took the champagne she offered, my eyes scanning the crowd. Sophia, in a white tulle dress, was standing by the sponsor's display board, chatting and laughing with a few socialites. She had deliberately worn light makeup today, making her look a bit more wan than usual, truly embodying the image of a fragile beauty. "I heard you and Mr. Croft," Lisa began tentatively. "It's exactly as you've heard." I took a sip of champagne. Lisa's expression immediately turned awkward. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "Eleanor," Zoe suddenly appeared, rescuing me from the awkward conversation. She pulled me towards the buffet. "Did you see Sophia's face today? She's acting like a damsel in distress, just waiting for Sebastian to show up." I picked up a mini sandwich, a little curious. "Is Sebastian coming too?" "You didn't know?" Zoe's eyes widened. "The main event tonight is the Croft Group's donation ceremony. Sophia must have planned this." Her words trailed off. There was a commotion at the entrance to the ballroom. Sebastian walked in, wearing a dark blue suit, accompanied by Mr. Zhao and a few other executives. He looked a little thinner than the last time I saw him, his jawline sharper. Sophia immediately fluttered over like a butterfly and naturally linked her arm through his. Sebastian leaned down and said something to her, which made her giggle. "So gross." Zoe rolled her eyes. "Let's get some air on the terrace." On the terrace, the early autumn night breeze was cool against my skin. Below, the city lights sparkled, the traffic a river of light. "I heard things haven't been going so well for Sophia lately," Zoe said, leaning against the railing. "The Croft Group terminated all their contracts with her, and all those scandals are being spread around the circle." "Shoo," I interrupted. "Someone's coming." The sound of high heels clicking on the floor approached. Sophia walked over with 2 glasses of champagne, a sickeningly fake smile on her face. "Miss Vance, Miss Collins, what are you two hiding out here for?" She offered me a glass. "I haven't had a chance to congratulate you on your design award yet." I didn't take the glass. "What do you want?" "Don't be so cold," She placed the champagne glass on the railing. Actually, I've been wanting to apologize to you. There might have been some misunderstandings before. She bit her lower lip, her eyes moist. Seb and I are really just old friends. I'm so sorry to hear about your divorce. Then be sorry. I'm not. I cut off her pathetic performance. Her smile froze. You thought no one would know if you deleted the records from the university's website. A pity. I took out my phone from my clutch. I happen to know that German professor. Sophia's face went white. She knew what I was talking about. You investigated me. I smiled and put my phone back in my bag. It's a collaboration. One has to know who they're dealing with. Applause suddenly erupted from the ballroom. The host was announcing the start of the donation ceremony. Sophia took a deep breath and suddenly grabbed my wrist. You think you've won. Her voice was barely a whisper. Seb could never truly love someone like you. But he loves you? I asked, feigning innocence. Before she could say another word, she let go of my hand, fell backward, and let out a piercing scream. The champagne glass fell from the railing and shattered on the terrace floor. Sophia lay among the broken glass, her white tulle dress quickly staining red with the spilled wine, making it look as if she were really injured. What happened? Sebastian's voice came from the doorway. He and a few other guests rushed onto the terrace, seeing me standing there while Sophia was curled up on the ground. Seb, Sophia reached out, her eyes filled with tears. I was just trying to apologize to Miss Vance. I didn't expect her to. All eyes were on me. Sebastian knelt to check Sophia's injuries, then looked up at me, his eyes full of accusation. Did you push her? Zoe started to speak, but I put a hand on her arm. There's a security camera on the terrace, I said calmly. You can see for yourself. Sophia's sobs stopped abruptly. Sebastian frowned. What? I said there's a camera. Go and look for yourself. I was getting tired of his stupidity. Sophia's face went from white to green. She suddenly fainted. The scene descended into chaos. Someone called for an ambulance. Others crowded around Sophia, shouting. Sebastian stood frozen, his eyes darting back and forth between me and Sophia. It's fake, I said softly, so only he could hear. There's no camera, but her reaction says it all, doesn't it? Paramedics rushed onto the terrace with a stretcher. I took the opportunity to pull Zoe away. As we passed Sebastian, he grabbed my wrist. Eleanor, Mr. Croft, I said, pulling my hand free. Shouldn't you be following them? She might get upset. As we left the hotel, the night wind was bracing. Zoe jumped up and down with excitement. Oh my God, did you see her face? It was like she'd seen a ghost. But, she suddenly looked at me with concern. Is there really a camera? Of course not. I hailed a taxi. As the taxi pulled away, I could still see the flashing blue lights of the ambulance. My phone vibrated. A message from Owen Sterling. How are you considering the East Lake project? I looked out at the flowing neon lights and replied, I'll take it, but on one condition. I want complete creative control. After sending the message, I opened my contacts and found a number I hadn't used in a long time. Professor Reinhardt from the Technical University of Munich in Germany. 6 months ago, he had provided the key evidence of Sophia's plagiarism. Now, it was time to call in the favor he owed me. In the reflection of the car window, the corners of my mouth curved upward slightly. In the conference room for the East Lake project launch, the air conditioning was blasting cold air. I was flipping through the project background materials when I noticed a sharp gaze from across the table. I looked up and met the eyes of a woman with short hair. She quickly looked away, but I had caught that flash of hostility. That's Sandra Lynn, a senior designer from the Croft Group's design department, Owen explained in a low voice. Following my gaze, I heard she was supposed to be the lead on the East Lake project. I nodded and continued to study the topographical maps. I was all too familiar with this kind of hostility. 6 years ago, when I had just graduated and won the Young Designer Gold Award, there were plenty of similar looks from the audience. The conference room door opened, and Sebastian walked in with several executives. He was in a sharp suit, his expression unreadable as he scanned the room, his gaze lingering on me for less than a second before moving on. After the project presentation began, I noticed that every time Sandra spoke, she would deliberately emphasize the Croft Group's years of industry experience and the importance of teamwork, as if to imply that I, the outsider, lacked a foundation. When I was presenting my initial design concept, she suddenly interrupted. Ms. Vance, this proposal looks very similar to a waterfront plan from a certain firm 2 years ago. The room went silent. I put down my laser pointer and looked directly into her flickering eyes. You're right, Ms. Lynn. I did draw inspiration from their waterfront treatment methods. I pulled up a set of comparison images on my tablet, but I have added a recycling system and floating islands to my design, which they did not have. I zoomed in on a design detail. In fact, this improved proposal was included in the Sustainable Urban Case Library last year. I can share the relevant paper with everyone. Sandra's face turned ugly. Sebastian suddenly spoke up. Continue with your presentation. His voice was low and steady, but I didn't miss the glimmer of light in his eyes. After the meeting, I was in the restroom touching up my makeup when I heard Sandra and another female colleague talking outside the stall. She probably just got it because of her ex-husband. What's she pretending to be a professional for? Sandra's voice was laced with envy. I heard she doesn't even have any formal work experience. She became a full-time housewife right after she got married. I pushed open the stall door. They both fell silent as if their throats had been squeezed. I washed my hands slowly, looking at Sandra's flushed face in the mirror. If you have something to say, why don't you say it to my face? And by the way, I said, grabbing a paper towel, I'd earned the East Lake project on my own merit. With that, I turned and left, leaving her standing there, clutching her powder compact so tightly her knuckles were white. Back at the studio, the receptionist called out to me, Eleanor, you have a delivery. It was an exquisite gift box. Inside was a limited edition fountain pen, the exact one I had dreamed of but couldn't afford in college. There was no name, but I knew who had sent it. I gave the pen to the new intern. Lynn, draw well. Don't let a good pen go to waste. For the next 2 weeks, rumors about me getting ahead through connections spread through the industry like mold. A design forum even started an anonymous discussion thread with a brutally direct title, The Genius Female Designer Who Divorced Her Way to the Top. Zoe was furious on the phone, but I was completely unfazed. Aren't you angry? Zoe finally asked, out of breath. What's the use of being angry? I said, adjusting the lighting on a model. Only when I prove myself will things be different. On the day of the summit, the venue was packed. As I walked onto the stage, I noticed Sandra and a few of her colleagues in the front row, their faces full of schadenfreude, and in the very back row, a tall figure in a baseball cap had quietly taken a seat. Though he was trying to be inconspicuous, I would have recognized that silhouette with my eyes closed. My speech was on the integration of traditional architectural elements into the modern city. The first half was theoretical analysis, and the second half demonstrated how this concept was being implemented in the East Lake project. When the realistic simulation video of the project played on the big screen, I heard gasps from the audience. Finally, I'd like to share a personal reflection. I switched the slide. It showed a comparison of my Gold Award-winning work from 5 years ago and the current East Lake project. Design, like life, will always face challenges, but as the old architects used to say, I looked towards where Sandra was sitting. A brick doesn't become a stone just because someone calls it one. Thank you to all the doubters. You have only made me more certain of my choices. The applause was thunderous. During the QA session, a young designer stood up. Ms. Vance, some people say you were awarded the East Lake project because of, special connections. How do you respond? The room fell silent, so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. I smiled and adjusted the microphone, my gaze sweeping over the audience. Actually, the answer is simple. In the field of design, blueprints are more persuasive than people. After the summit, I was surrounded by colleagues asking questions. By the time I finally managed to get away, the venue was empty, except for a few forgotten brochures scattered on the seats. As I walked out of the building, the setting sun stretched my shadow long. A black car pulled up in front of me, the window rolled down, revealing Sebastian's face. That was a great speech, he said, his voice holding a warmth I had never heard before. Care for a cup of coffee? I glanced at my watch. 20 minutes. We found a quiet corner in a coffee shop. He ordered an Americano, black, no sugar, a complete departure from the latte I remembered him drinking. You've changed your taste. I stirred my own latte. He looked down at the black liquid in his cup. A lot of habits have changed. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting striped shadows on his face. I noticed he had fine lines around his eyes. About those rumors. He looked up. I've had them taken care of. No need. I put down my spoon. I can handle it. I know. His fingers tapped lightly on the cup. I just don't want to see you treated unfairly. The words were a small knife, piercing a soft spot in my heart. There was a time when I would have done anything to hear him say that. Now, it just felt absurd. Where was he on all those days when I needed him to stand by my side? Sebastian. I looked him straight in the eye. It's pointless to say these things now. With that, I picked up my bag and stood up. I should go. He grabbed my wrist. I owe you an apology. For Sophia. For all the times I neglected you. For everything. I gently pulled my hand away. Some hurts, Sebastian. Can't be fixed with an apology. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I didn't look back, but I could feel his gaze following me, like an invisible chain, yet so light it could break at any moment. In the following days, the East Lake project progressed smoothly. Although Sandra would still occasionally make difficult remarks in meetings, she had clearly toned it down, and the rumors about me, like a summer afternoon shower, came and went quickly. A new piece of gossip, however, began to circulate in the industry. The Croft Group was investigating a certain external consultant for business misconduct, allegedly involving financial issues on multiple projects. One night, I was working late at the studio. As I left the building, the entire street was so quiet only the hum of the streetlights could be heard. A familiar figure was leaning against the marble pillar in front of my apartment building, a cigarette glowing in the darkness. Sebastian, I stopped. What are you doing here? He stubbed out the cigarette. In the moonlight, his features looked exceptionally sharp. I found out. His voice was hoarse. The funds Sophia embezzled from the Croft Group over the years, the falsified credentials, and even, he gave a bitter laugh, those depression diagnoses. The night wind messed up his hair. It was the first time I had seen this impeccably put-together man look so disheveled. And, I asked calmly. He took a step forward. I could smell the mix of tobacco and cologne on him. I didn't come here to ask for your forgiveness. He took a deep breath. You should know, the streetlight cast our shadows long, almost overlapping. I looked at the man I had once been head over heels for and suddenly felt nothing. I already knew. Sebastian, I said softly. I was just waiting for you to find out for yourself. His pupils dilated slightly. You? Since when? So long I can't remember. I walked towards the apartment entrance. He didn't try to stop me, just stood there. His shadow stretched long by the streetlight. Outside, the eastern sky was beginning to turn pale. I made a cup of coffee and opened my computer to start revising a design. At the National Architectural Design Awards ceremony, the flashbulbs were like a torrential downpour. I stood on the stage, the crystal trophy in my hand refracting a rainbow of colors, so bright it was almost blinding. In the front row, Owen Sterling was giving me a thumbs up, while Zoe was so emotional she kept wiping her tears. Ms. Eleanor Vance's work, Urban Respiration, masterfully blends traditional garden aesthetics with modern urban functionality. The host's voice echoed through the ballroom. The jury unanimously agreed that this represents the innovative height of contemporary Chinese design. My gaze swept over the audience, and in the last row, I caught a familiar figure. Sebastian was wearing a dark gray suit, not in the VIP section as usual, but hidden among the regular attendees. Our eyes met for a brief moment. He gave a slight nod, the corner of his mouth curving into an almost imperceptible smile. The applause died down. I adjusted the microphone. I knew my speech by heart, but halfway through, a commotion erupted in the audience. Several reporters were looking down at their phones, then up at me in surprise. Whispers spread like ripples. I finished my speech without missing a beat. As I walked down the steps, Zoe rushed over and grabbed my arm. Something's happened. The Croft Group has been hit with a plagiarism scandal. It's all over the internet. She turned her phone screen towards me. The headline of a financial news site was glaring. Croft Group embroiled in plagiarism scandal. Project bears striking resemblance to rising star Eleanor Vance's work. In the photo, Sebastian was surrounded by reporters, his face ashen, and the accompanying comparison images showed that the latest proposal for the Croft Tech Park had a core landscape design that was highly similar to my Gold Award-winning design from 5 years ago. Sophia Lowell. I said the name softly, a strange sense of calm washing over me. At the after-party, I was swamped by media and colleagues. A female reporter from a fashion magazine pushed her way to the front. Ms. Vance, do you have any comment on the Croft Group's alleged plagiarism of your work? The champagne in my glass tilted slightly, the bubbles rising cheerfully. I trust that the professional bodies will reach a fair judgment, I said, taking a sip. However, it is interesting to note that the design consultant for the project in question happens to be Miss Sophia Lowell. The reporters' eyes lit up, and their recording devices were thrust even closer. Are you implying that Sophia Lowell deliberately plagiarized your work? Is this related to your divorce from Mr. Croft? Next question. Owen suddenly appeared, his arm gently guiding me away. Today is a celebration of Ms. Vance's award. We will not be discussing other topics. He led me through the crowd of reporters. On the terrace, he asked in a low voice. You knew about this all along. The night wind was cool against my skin. I looked at the lights of the Croft Group headquarters in the distance. I only knew she would try something. I didn't expect her to be so stupid. I took out my phone from my clutch and pulled up a set of design drawings. This is a new work I just copyrighted last week. Owen's eyes widened. You set her up. I put my phone away. If she hadn't had malicious intent, this wouldn't be a setup. It was 1 a.m. by the time the party ended. I declined my colleagues' invitations to continue the celebration and walked to the parking garage alone. The sound of my heels echoed in the empty space. Suddenly, another set of footsteps followed. "Congratulations." Sebastian's voice came from behind. I turned to see him leaning against a pillar, his suit jacket draped over his shoulder, his tie loosened. He looked exhausted. The overhead lights cast mottled shadows on his face, accentuating his sharp features. I noticed that the mark on his left ring finger where he used to wear his wedding band had faded. "Here to question me." I gestured to the bulging briefcase in his hand, clearly full of documents. He gave a bitter smile. "Here to clean up a mess." After a moment of silence, he said suddenly, "The tech park design was indeed plagiarized, but it wasn't a corporate decision. It was Sophia who altered the final proposal without authorization." I opened my car door. She always liked to take shortcuts. Sebastian took a step forward, blocking the door. "Why?" Moonlight slanted in through the garage skylight, drawing a silver line between us. I looked at the man I had once known to my core and suddenly felt like he was a stranger. I didn't answer his question directly. "Sebastian, this is all your own fault." I paused. "You enabled all of this." He recoiled as if he had been slapped, his Adam's apple bobbing. I didn't realize. "So you can only blame yourself," I said, getting into the driver's seat. The sound of the engine starting echoed through the garage. Sebastian stood frozen, his shadow stretched long and thin. In the rearview mirror, his figure grew smaller and smaller, until it finally disappeared around the corner. 3 days later, I was in my studio reviewing construction drawings when my phone started buzzing uncontrollably. Zoe's caller ID showed over a dozen missed calls. The moment I answered, her sharp voice pierced my ear. "My dear Ellie, Sophia's been arrested." Sebastian reported her himself. "The internet is going crazy." I clicked on the link she sent. The local financial news headline was stark. "Former Croft Group consultant Sophia Lowell taken into police custody for commercial fraud." The accompanying photo showed Sophia being escorted by 2 female officers, her hair a mess, all traces of her former elegance gone. The report detailed the evidence of her falsified credentials, embezzlement of funds, and even her alteration of the design proposal. And this is the best part. Zoe sent another video. In the clip, Sebastian was facing a barrage of questions from reporters. He stated, his face impassive, "What Miss Lowell needs is legal consequences and professional help." The words were a blade, severing any possibility between them. I closed my computer and walked to the window. The sun streamed in, so warm it made you want to cry. My phone rang again. This time, it was my mother. "Eleanor, did you see the news?" Her voice was shrill with excitement. "Sebastian has completely cut ties with that vixen. Now is the perfect time for you to go back." I gripped my phone, my voice filled with disbelief. "Go back?" "Of course," my mother said quickly. "He needs comfort right now. You should take this opportunity." "Mom," I interrupted, "why should I go back?" There was a pause on the other end. "Don't be a fool. What good is a career for a woman? A family like the Crofts?" "Mom, if you can't respect my choices, we'll talk another time," I said softly. After hanging up, I opened a drawer. The divorce papers lay inside, a silent testament. They would be officially finalized tomorrow. Outside, a sycamore leaf drifted down, spinning in the sunlight before landing on the ground. Autumn had arrived. In the evening, everyone at the studio had left. I was packing up my drawings when the doorbell rang. On the security monitor, Sebastian stood outside, holding a file folder. I hesitated for a moment, then buzzed him in. He brought a chill with him when he entered. There were dark circles under his eyes. "Sorry to drop by unannounced." He placed the folder on the table. "You should see this." The folder contained the investigation files on Sophia bank statements, samples of forged seals, even a recording of her colluding with her psychiatrist. I must have been out of my mind. Sebastian's voice was as rough as sandpaper. "All these years, I didn't look at the files, just pushed them back towards him. This has nothing to do with me anymore." He leaned his hands on the table, his knuckles white. "I just wanted to tell you in person. I'm sorry." The 3 words were squeezed out, heavy as lead. The late afternoon sun slanted in through the west window, casting his shadow on the wall, twisted and distorted. I suddenly remembered our first date 6 years ago. It was at a similar time of day. As the sun was setting, he had looked at my design sketches, his eyes as bright as stars. Now, those same eyes were filled with nothing but endless fatigue and regret. Sebastian. I said his name softly. We both need to move on. He looked up, a bitter smile on his lips. You're right. As he turned to leave, he suddenly stopped. By the way, the East Lake project, will you still be involved? Of course, I said, picking up my car keys. It's my work. His phone suddenly rang. The caller ID was Mr. Zhao. Sebastian answered, his face growing darker and darker. I'll be right there. He hung up, his voice tense. Sophia is threatening to kill herself in my office. 2 police cars were parked in front of the Croft Group headquarters. People were rushing in and out of the revolving doors, their faces filled with panic. The elevator went straight to the top floor. The moment the doors opened, I could hear a shrill female voice from the president's office. On what grounds are you treating me like this? I've given so much to this company. I pushed open the half-closed door. The scene inside was suffocating. Sophia was standing on the windowsill, one hand gripping the curtain, the other holding a small knife to her wrist. Her white dress was dirty, her makeup was a mess, all traces of her former elegance gone. Several executives and security guards were standing at a distance, afraid to get any closer. Everyone out, Sebastian commanded. The crowd dispersed as if granted a pardon, leaving just the 2 of us. Seb. Sophia's tears streaked through her mascara, leaving black trails on her face. Listen to me. I'll pay back the money. I just need some time. Get down from the windowsill. Sebastian's voice was as cold as ice. Don't make me say it again. It was then that Sophia noticed my presence. Her eyes instantly turned venomous. It's all your fault. You bitch. You're the one who turned him against me. She brandished the small knife. I only borrowed your stupid design. What's the big deal? Do you know why Seb chose you over me back then? Just because you're family. Enough. Sebastian cut her off sharply. Get down, or I'm calling the police in right now. Sophia suddenly cackled, a sound that was truly chilling. Go ahead. Let everyone see how the Croft Group treats me. The tip of her knife pressed a red line onto her wrist. I gave you so much. How could you do this to me? I watched this farce with a cold detachment, noticing that although Sophia was emotional, the knife never actually broke the skin. A classic case of a performative suicide threat. I quietly took out my phone and switched it to video mode. Sophia, I took a step forward. Do you know why your designs are always missing something? She was taken aback, clearly not expecting me to ask this. What? Because plagiarism is like wearing stolen clothes. They never fit. Sophia's face went from red to white, then to a sickly green. You. Also, I said, holding up my phone. The police are already downstairs. Are you sure you want to continue? Her expression crumbled instantly. The knife clattered to the floor. Sebastian lunged forward and pulled her from the windowsill, simultaneously pressing the call button on his desk. 2 police officers immediately entered and handcuffed the limp Sophia. Sebastian, you'll regret this, she shrieked hysterically as she was led out of the office. Without me, you would have been. The door closed, cutting off her screams. The office was suddenly eerily quiet, the only sound Sebastian's heavy breathing. He gave me a weak nod, his back slowly disappearing behind the glass door. The elevator dinged and then fell silent. I walked out of the Croft Group building and towards the parking lot. The setting sun painted the entire city in gold, the glass of the skyscrapers reflecting a blinding light. My phone vibrated. A message from Owen Sterling. Just received an invitation from the International Architectural Association, recommending you for next year's Global Design Summit in Paris. Interested? I pressed the voice reply button. Owen, you don't even have to ask. Of course, I am. Please send me the details. After sending the message, I added, by the way, I need to take 2 days off next week. For what? He replied instantly. To finalize my divorce, I said, starting the car and pulling out into the stream of traffic. In the rearview mirror, the studio building grew smaller and smaller, while ahead, countless lights were just beginning to turn on. Outside the law firm's glass walls, camera flashes went off like a torrential downpour. I pulled the blinds shut, blocking out the prying lenses. Across the long table, Sebastian's lawyer was quietly explaining the details of a document to him. He just stared at the cold cup of black coffee in front of him, his fingertips tapping out a silent rhythm on the tabletop. Ms. Vance, here is the revised agreement. My lawyer, Linda, said, pushing a stack of documents towards me. Please review it. I opened the folder. The number on the asset division page made my eyebrows jump. It was nearly double what we had initially agreed upon. What is this? Sebastian finally looked up, dark circles under his eyes. What you deserve. His voice was rough, as if scraped with sandpaper. Sunlight slipped through the cracks in the blinds, casting striped shadows on his face. I noticed that the faint white line on his left ring finger where he used to wear his wedding band was gone. I don't need it, I said, pushing the documents back. The original agreement is fine. Consider it my apology, he said, his hands clasped on the table, his knuckles white. The room fell silent, the only sound the hum of the air conditioner. Linda cleared her throat. If both parties have no objections to the terms, I have a condition, I interrupted, looking directly into Sebastian's eyes. The old renovation project in the east side of the city. I want complete creative control. Sebastian's eyebrows twitched almost imperceptibly. That was the project Sophia had interfered with the most. Now, it was a hot potato. It's already been arranged, he said, motioning for his lawyer to hand over another document. The contract was drawn up yesterday. It just needs your signature. I opened the contract. My studio's name was printed as the second party, and the design fee was half as much again as the market rate. Mr. Croft, what is the meaning of this? Your design is worth that much, Sebastian said, picking up a fountain pen. What I owe you is more than just money. With the scratch of the pen on paper, 6 years of marriage officially came to an end. After signing the last name, I closed the folder. Outside, a camera shutter clicked, a reporter capturing the moment. Congratulations, Sebastian said suddenly, on the award. Thank you. I gathered my copy of the agreement. I hear the tech park crisis has been resolved. Thanks to your suggestions, he said with a bitter smile. The board decided to scrap everything and start over. Based on your proposal, he paused. About Sophia, I'm very sorry. The name was like a piece of ice slipping down my collar, sending an involuntary shiver through me. I picked up my bag and stood up. There's nothing to be sorry about, and besides, an apology wouldn't change anything. Eleanor, he called out to me, his voice cracking. If one day, I mean if, could we be friends? The light from the hallway slanted in, stretching his shadow long, all the way to my feet. I looked at the man I had once loved with all my heart and felt a strange sense of peace. No, I said softly, not now, not ever. As I left the law firm, reporters swarmed around me like sharks smelling blood. Ms. Vance, do you have any comment on the lawsuit against Sophia Lowell? Will you consider reconciling with Mr. Croft? It's rumored that your award-winning work has been noticed by several international institutions. I put on my sunglasses and pushed through the crowd with the help of security. A female reporter suddenly squeezed to the front. Ms. Vance, many netizens are saying you should be more magnanimous and give Mr. Croft a chance to redeem himself. What do you think? I stopped and took off my sunglasses. All the camera lenses immediately focused on my face. I lifted my chin slightly. Why is no one asking Sebastian Croft why he didn't give Eleanor Vance a chance to be respected sooner? The crowd of reporters fell silent, the only sound the clicking of shutters. My success has nothing to do with my marital status, I continued, my voice echoing through the lobby of the law firm. A woman's value should not be determined by anyone else. Thank you for your concern. Please focus more on my design work. I pushed open the glass door, and the late summer sun hit me with full force. Zoe's car was parked by the curb. She rolled down the window and waved. Get in, you're trending. The air conditioning in the car was on full blast, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat outside. Zoe shoved her phone in my face. Look, that speech you just gave was live-streamed. On the screen, the hashtag Eleanor Vance Woman's Value was already the #1 trending topic. The comments section had exploded. Some were calling me unforgiving, but most were praising me. Go, Queen. This is what an independent woman sounds like. To all the people telling her to be magnanimous, Sebastian was the one who cheated. Why should she have to be the bigger person? The news about Sophia also broke. Zoe switched the page. Someone dug up that she's not even a top design student. She bought her university degree. The news article deconstructed Sophia's glittering resume piece by piece, the forged degree, the plagiarized graduation project. The most damning evidence was the complete record of her bank statements, showing her embezzlement of funds to buy luxury goods. Every transaction clearly marked. Serves her right. Zoe slapped the steering wheel. She was such a two-faced schemer. Now she's the one who's been exposed. I looked out at the flowing streetscape. The stone that had been weighing on my chest for years finally lifted. All the evidence I had gathered in the dead of night, all the anger I had suppressed, was now laid out in print for the world to see, no longer requiring my own hand. My phone vibrated. A message from Owen Sterling. The International Architectural Association would like to invite you to give a keynote speech on women in design. Are you available? I replied with a single word, yes, then opened my long-neglected social media account and posted a new update. Grateful for all experiences. The future will be focused on design. P.S. new studio in the works. Talented individuals are welcome to join. The accompanying photo was of the last page of the divorce agreement, signed, next to the National Young Designer Award trophy. Notifications started pouring in immediately. Among the many congratulations, a comment from Sebastian stood out, wishing you a bright future, 4 simple words, with no extra emojis or explanations. I hesitated for a moment, then replied with the same 4 words. In the rearview mirror, the law firm building grew smaller and smaller, until it finally disappeared around the corner. Where to? Zoe asked at a red light. The studio, I guess, I said, putting my phone down. The car merged onto the main road. Sunlight streamed through the sunroof, warming my knees. The radio was playing a financial news segment. The Croft Group's stock rebounded today. Sources say the company has reached a partnership with a renowned design studio. Zoe scoffed. A renowned design studio? Why doesn't he just say your name? It's just a business strategy, I said, rolling down the window and letting the wind mess up my hair. He needs to downplay the personal connection now and emphasize the professional collaboration. You know him so well. Zoe pouted. I used to. I corrected her softly. That was in the past. Downstairs from the studio, an unexpected figure was pacing back and forth. Sebastian's mother, Margaret, was in a Chanel suit, looking completely out of place in the sweltering heat. She saw us get out of the car and immediately walked over. Eleanor, we need to talk. Zoe started to say something, but I shook my head and motioned for her to go upstairs. What can I do for you? I asked, standing my ground. Margaret's flawless makeup couldn't hide the fatigue around her eyes. Sebastian transferred the Westside villa to you. Did you know? I didn't, I said honestly, and besides, I don't need it. That was his grandmother's, she said, wringing the strap of her handbag. Eleanor, I know Sebastian did a lot of wrong, but now that that vixen has gotten what she deserved, why do you have to? Aunt Margaret, I cut her off. Do you know why Sebastian and I ended up like this? She was taken aback. It wasn't because of Sophia, I said calmly. It's because for 6 years, he never truly saw me. Margaret's lips trembled. You hate him that much? No, I don't hate him. I shook my head, but I don't love him anymore either. She seemed to be struck by the words, taking half a step back, her perfectly coiffed hair trembling slightly in the wind. That villa, you really don't want it. Thank him for his kind intentions for me, I said, walking towards the building entrance. But my future does not depend on any gifts from the past. Paris, the main venue of the Global Design Summit, under the glittering crystal chandeliers, top designers from all over the world had gathered. As one of the keynote speakers, I stood in the spotlight, fluently explaining my design philosophy in English, how to reconstruct the connection between humanity and nature in the cracks of the modern city. The audience was attentive, with occasional bursts of applause. After the speech, during the QA session, a blonde reporter stood up. Ms. Vance, your designs are full of amazing vitality. I heard you had a period of hiatus. What was it that allowed you to rediscover and unleash such a powerful creative energy? The room fell silent. The question verged on prying into my personal life. I smiled calmly. The energy of life comes from self-awareness and perseverance. That hiatus was the price I paid for choosing to step aside for someone else. And the rediscovery came because I finally understood that my value does not need to be defined or granted by anyone else, rather than a transformation. It was a long overdue self-rescue and awakening. Emotional experiences are the footnotes of life, but the true author is always oneself. Thunderous applause. I saw Owen in the front row, giving me a look of pride and admiration. During the reception, he came over with a glass of champagne and gently clinked it against mine. That was a great speech. I smiled and nodded in response, my eyes scanning the glamorous crowd. But in an inconspicuous corner of the venue, I saw that familiar figure again. Sebastian. He was in a well-tailored black suit, standing in the shadows, his gaze cutting through the crowd, locked on me. He didn't approach, just watched, his expression a complex mix of pride, regret, deep pain, and a hint of humble pleading. I felt nothing. In fact, I was a little annoyed. He was like a shadow I couldn't shake, his pain a constant reminder of my unpleasant past. I looked away, completely shutting him out of my world. Shortly after I returned from the summit, an explosive news story swept through the financial and entertainment sections. Croft Group CEO Sebastian Croft was rushed to the hospital with a severe stomach hemorrhage, suspected to be caused by long-term high-intensity work and mental stress. The company's stock price plummeted. Zoe's call was immediate. Oh my God, Ellie, did you see? Sebastian is in the ICU. They said it was a massive hemorrhage. He almost didn't make it. It's all over the internet. They're saying it's because of you, that he's depressed. I looked at the news photo of Sebastian lying in a hospital bed, his face ashen, tubes attached to him, and felt a complete void. His pain, his illness, even his life or death, could no longer move my heart. It has nothing to do with me, I replied calmly to Zoe, my eyes on the 3D rendering of my new studio on my computer screen. He did this to his own body. He mismanaged his own company. Zoe, please contact Mr. Wang from the City Investment Group for me. I want to discuss the location for the new studio with him. My independent design studio, First Sight, officially opened. It was located in the city's most artistic renovated factory district, retaining the raw industrial skeleton, but the interior was my own carefully designed space, full of futuristic and natural vitality. The opening ceremony was a star-studded affair, with industry leaders, media, and partners all in attendance. I stood on the stage in a simple but powerful black suit dress, my voice confident and composed as I gave my speech. First Sight signifies a return to the origin, to see the world with new eyes and create infinite possibilities. My voice, amplified by the microphone, was firm and full of strength. A year later, the Cloud Valley project designed by First Sight Studio won the highest international award in architecture. The awards ceremony was held in Switzerland. Under the spotlights, I held the heavy trophy and gave my acceptance speech in my native language, thanking my team, my homeland, and myself for never giving up. At the after-party, Owen was by my side, and we talked shop with an easy camaraderie. He was an excellent partner. We had a mutual respect, a shared goal, and perhaps more possibilities in the future, but this friendship was pure and equal. On the ballroom terrace, I stood alone, looking out at the snow-capped Alps in the distance, savoring the quiet of this peak moment. A waiter quietly approached and handed me a plain, unmarked manila envelope. Inside were 2 pieces of paper. The first was a notarized summary of a will, signed 3 months prior. The testator was Sebastian Croft. The core content was crystal clear. Upon his death, all his shares in the Croft Group, as well as his personal real estate and liquid assets, were to be unconditionally bequeathed to Ms. Eleanor Vance. The remainder was to establish a charitable foundation to support female entrepreneurs in design and patients with depression. It had his handwritten signature and the notary's seal. The second was a printed-out diagnosis from an authoritative medical institution. The patient's name was also Sebastian Croft. The diagnosis was late-stage stomach cancer. It had already metastasized. The prognosis was extremely poor. The paper in my hand turned cold. The air seemed to freeze. The twist was so sudden, so heavy. He was dying. This was his way of forcing everything he had on me, in an act of near atonement. This was probably the most thorough form of repentance and compensation he could think of. My heart was squeezed by an invisible hand. A brief, sharp sense of suffocation, but the feeling quickly disappeared, replaced by a deeper, colder calm. What was this? Was he using all his wealth and his impending death to force me to remember him, to elicit a sliver of my pity or softness, or to burden me for the rest of my life? No, absolutely not. I walked to the trash can at the edge of the terrace and took out a lighter. Click. A small blue flame flickered in the night wind, gently consuming the 2 cold documents. The will and the diagnosis curled, blackened, and turned to ash in the flames. Like his belated, insincere affection, ultimately reduced to nothing, the ashes were scattered by the wind, disappearing into the glittering night. I turned around, my face free of tears, only a clear sense of release. I walked back into the brightly lit, laughter-filled ballroom. He was dying. That was the ending he chose. His pain, his terminal illness, his all-encompassing gift. None of it had anything to do with Eleanor Vance anymore. My future was dazzling, vast, and limitless, and there was no place for Sebastian Croft in it. Not a single trace. Never forgive. Never look back. This was the truest, most absolute farewell to him and to that past.